Good morning, everybody. It's Friday morning and it's the Talking Cafe time. As you may be aware, this is our last Friday morning Talking Cafe. But don't worry, we're not going away. We're just going to change. We're going to be moving to Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursdays. And that's going to be between 1 and 1:45. Now, when I heard that, I did have a little bit of a panic because I was thinking, loose women time. But don't worry, I have checked, loose women is at 12:30. And also, don't forget, we record these so you can watch them at any time. Obviously, you won't be able to comment on them if you're watching them later, but they are available. And if you look through our list, you'll see that all the ones from a whole year, I think, pretty much are still accessible. So nothing to worry about there. Now, the reason we're going to 3 days is a good thing, I promise. It's because, of course, now that we're coming out of lockdown, we are actually trying to get back out in the community, and as Talking Cafe we are going to trial bringing some more of the Talking Cafes back into real life again, but we are going to keep going with the Talking Cafe as well. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be 1 till 1:45. So today is our last day in April, last Friday slot, and we have got an absolute corker today because I have got the nutritionist Rebecca Vincent with us today, and she is a nutritionist, and she provides tailored support and undertakes research. And she's going to be talking to us today about the link between mental health and our diet. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to be really careful today because I am really, really interested in this. And I'm really worried that I'm going to interrupt with so many questions all the time that poor old Rebecca's not actually going to be able to get on and do her talk. So I'm going to be really, really disciplined. But I am going to ask you if you can do the same. So what we're going to do is, if you've got any comments or things you'd like to say, please, please, please put them in the chat. We will come to them as soon as we can, and we will also open up for questions at the end. But if you can keep those questions so that they're not sort of very much linked to something that is just for you, but something that is a general nutritional idea so that it's interesting for everyone. So with no further ado, I am now going to invite Rebecca on to join me. And here we go. Let's make sure the technology is working. Yay, hey. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Kath. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me on here today.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. So as a nutritional therapist, I offer one-to-one consultations, taking a thorough case history to assess an individual's health status and identify the potential biochemical imbalances that are driving symptoms and conditions. Then, through a personalized nutrition and lifestyle plan that's tailored to the individual's life, we work to address these imbalances and enhance health and well-being. So there's no one-size-fits-all approach, as I'm sure a lot of you have gathered from nutritional adventures yourself. We've each lived very different lives, and even if we experienced the same symptoms or conditions, we often took a different path to get there. So as such, nutritional therapy takes into account the individual as a whole, and the experiences that have made us who we are today. Just to add, obviously nutritional therapy is not a replacement for conventional medicine, but works alongside other health professionals to support an individual's health. As such, I'm not able to provide targeted advice for particular health concerns in a group setting such as this. There are just too many variables to take into account and the potential for contraindications. However, there is plenty of information that I can share with you today, and I hope you find it interesting and useful.
Oh, brilliant.
Sorry, I think we've got a bit of a lag, haven't we?
We do, don't we? I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to be absolutely silent, I promise.
Oh, I'm so sorry. The wonders of the internet. I do have some notes with me today to make sure that I cover all aspects that we'd planned. So please do excuse me if I glance to the side occasionally, just to make sure that I'm covering everything. So as Kath mentioned, I am currently carrying out research, and this is into the vagus nerve and how we can influence its function for the better with dietary and lifestyle changes. Now, the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it runs from the brain all the way down to our colon, connecting with almost all of our internal organs on the way. It relays information from our internal organs to the brain and vice versa, overseeing control of things like mood, immune response, digestion, and our heart rate. So the vagus nerve is the main component of our parasympathetic nervous system. Now, this is the opposite to our sympathetic nervous system, which we've heard more about, really. This is what is known for our stress or flight or fight response. So in this state, we experience increased heart rate and blood pressure. Our body downregulates our maintenance processes in favor of readying for action. And this includes limiting processes that are considered non-essential in an action situation. So that's kind of things like digestion and reproductive function and other kind of extraneous hormones. Activation of the parasympathetic nervous system brings about the opposite reaction, which is called our rest and digest response. And in this state, it's this state that we ideally want to spend most of our time in. As you can imagine, it sounds blissful by comparison. So this can be quite difficult, especially given the stresses that we're currently facing. But in this state, our heart rate and blood pressure come back down to normal, our hormones return to baseline, and processes such as digestion can continue with their usual rigor. So high levels of vagus nerve or parasympathetic activity is associated with many beneficial health outcomes, including lower levels of inflammation and stress hormones, lower risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke, improved mental health, fewer gastrointestinal symptoms, and even improved pain sensitivity. So just to quickly pop back and clarify what I mean by inflammation in this context. So inflammation is a natural part of our body's immune response and plays an essential role in healing and repair. Usually, once it's done its job and served its purpose, it goes away, and that's how it should be. However, when inflammation is long-term, as in when our body processes are not able to function within their normal or desirable biological parameters for extended periods of time, such as when we're stressed, it can be problematic. And it's this type of inflammation that we want to lower. So higher vagus nerve activity has been linked with an increased ability to also adapt and recover from psychosocial stress compared to lower activity. So that's to say that at a biological level, we can return to our normal balanced state quicker after a period of stress with this higher level of vagus nerve activity. And when our biological processes are in balance, it can be easier for our mind to let go of the heightened state as well, as the signals it's receiving from the body say that the danger has passed. This is, of course, by no means to say that this kind of work that we're going to discuss today is a replacement for medications or therapies to assist our mental health. Just that this is one aspect of the bigger picture, and understanding our biology can be powerful. This branch of science is referred to as Psychoneuro Endocrine Immunology. Now bear with me, I know that is a mouthful and I frequently trip over that word myself. But in its simplest breakdown, it looks to understand how the mind can affect our biology and our biology can affect our mind. So the vagus nerve is highly connected with our gastrointestinal tract and relays information regarding the volume of the stomach contents, the pH and water content of the gut, and the chemical composition of our last meal to the brain. It forms an important part of what we call the gut-brain axis. Now, it's not the sole part of the gut-brain axis. This also includes hormonal, immune, and metabolic pathways of conversation. But this is a really important one when it comes to our stress. And it explains how our gut can influence our brain and how we feel, and vice versa. So a popular topic of late has been our gut microbes. And while we are still learning about them and their far-reaching effects every day, we do know that supporting a diverse range of gut microbes is associated with overall health. They form a key part of this gut-brain axis as well, and can exert an influence over our health through the vagus nerve, affecting functions including mood and memory. And there's even been research into the potential for our microbes to influence our food choices, But we haven't identified which bacteria can make us crave a salad over a donut just yet, I'm afraid. Our gut microbes do a lot for us, though, and when fed with foods that they enjoy through our diet, can produce many beneficial compounds from us, ranging from vitamins to neurotransmitters, hormones, and metabolites called short-chain fatty acids that can benefit the function of the vagus nerve and facilitate the communication between the gut and the brain. Links have been made between higher levels of these microbial metabolites and improved mental health, neurological outcomes, and even improved appetite regulation, showing the potential to help with weight loss. Now, we hear a lot about probiotics, the live beneficial bacteria, and about prebiotics, the dietary fibers and components that they like to feed on. But these compounds that they produce have been given a new name, postbiotics, and pose an important area of research into the effects our microbes have on us. So the take-home point from this is that supporting the health of your gut microbes so that they can produce these beneficial compounds through diet and lifestyle can increase the vagus nerve activity, and therefore has the potential to help limit the physiological effects of stress throughout our body. So we'll take a look at some of the ways that we can do that now. I know as soon as you mention probiotics and prebiotics, it can make you think that you need to go out and buy some expensive supplement. And while supplements and probiotics can certainly have their place, they are not something I recommend to everyone, especially not when looking at an individual case first. I prefer to work from a food first perspective. And when having a whole food instead of an individual nutrient, you're getting everything that food has to offer, not just one part of it. And that includes compounds that can benefit your gut microbes as well, which is far more bang for your buck if you ask me. So food sources of beneficial bacteria have been popular for centuries. And almost all cultures across the globe have a popular local fermented food, which is bursting with a variety of microbes. Just to give you some examples, there's sauerkraut, fermented cabbage from Germany, kimchi, a spicy fermented vegetable dish from Korea, kombucha, a fermented tea drink, bear with me, I know that one sounds particularly weird, that is believed to have originated from China, kefir, a fermented milk product whose origin is widely debated but can be generally considered to be from Eastern Europe. And closer to home, obviously, we have live yogurts and unpasteurized cheeses, which are popular across the UK and Europe. So while there's evidence to suggest that the microbes we consume do not set up a permanent residence in our gut, along with our own in-house colony, we know that they exert a beneficial effect while they're there in helping to support the colonies of beneficial bacteria that we already have and supporting balanced gut function. So including some of these options in your regular diet can be a great way to support your health. But if you don't already consume some live foods, it is best to start slowly, with a tablespoon or so a day. A lot of these foods are widely available in our supermarkets now, but the cheapest way to enjoy them and to ensure that they aren't pasteurized, so you are actually getting live bacteria, is to make them yourself. Sauerkraut and kefir are two of the easiest options when it comes to making them yourself with minimal effort, and they actually give a lot back. So I have included some links on how to make them if you'd like to give them a go. And if you do have any further questions about them, let me know and I'll answer them as much as I can. So consuming a wide variety of plant-based foods has been shown to be one of the best ways to support our gut microbes. So that's including more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds. And that's the best way to help them help you. They do have a few foods that they don't particularly enjoy so much. So this would be highly processed foods. That's the ones that really don't resemble their original ingredients in their natural form. High sugar foods and drinks, and alcohol. So limiting, or at least keeping an eye on your intake of these things, will help your beneficial gut microbes. Overconsumption of them has been shown to cause a shift towards the more unhelpful microbes in your gut. So this is always worth bearing in mind. That being said, we all have times when we are rushed off our feet and the only thing we're able to put on the table is a ready meal. In these situations, I just recommend having a few backup items in stock in your kitchen to provide a little something for your gut microbes with your meal. Be that a bag of salad in the fridge so that you can just throw a handful on the side of the plate, or some frozen vegetables that you can just pop in the microwave alongside the ready meal, and there you go. Something for you that's easy and quick and convenient, and a little something for your gut microbes as well. So setting aside time for some batch cooking on a day off or at a quieter time can really help when it comes to providing a healthier meal on busier days. And this is where I love my freezer. Making up some soups is an easy way to introduce lots of vegetables into your diet. And using things like red split lentils or just a tin of white beans to thicken the soups can help to increase the fiber and plant diversity in your gut, and your diet easily and cheaply. I always have some red split lentils in the cupboard as they're just so easy to slip into anything with a sauce. Spaghetti bolognese, shepherd's pie, chili con carne, pie mixes and stews. They're cheap, they don't really taste of anything, so they won't affect the flavour of your dish, and they help to thicken it for you. If you have someone who is a little on the picky side with their vegetables or doesn't like the texture, you can easily hide them in the sauces of these kind of foods as well. So cooking up a sauce with chopped tomatoes, onions, celery, carrots, and even peppers, spinach, some herbs and spices, and blending it all together will make a tasty base for a bolognese, a pie, or a stew with lots of vegetables hidden away, so you know you're getting extra fiber and phytochemicals from the plants. You can make a big batch of this in one go and freeze a couple of portions, which will mean that on a day when you have less time available, you can still whip up a quick meal with lots of vegetables in that you know is going to be beneficial, but with far less effort. In an ideal world, each meal would be half vegetables. And while I do recommend this to my clients, it's important to start from where you are. If you're currently only consuming 1 to 2 portions of fruits and vegetables per day, jumping into half a plate of vegetables at each meal is a daunting ask and likely to be too much too soon, not just from, getting your head around the meal planning side of things, but for your gut as well. So usually I start by asking my clients if they can add just one extra portion to a couple of meals within a day. A handful of spinach here, some broccoli there, and it's a lot easier to do. Once you start to see and feel the benefits of having this extra vegetable consumption, it becomes a lot more desirable to then kind of grow on that and take it further. So that's where I like to start. When we're trying to make these lasting changes, slowly is often much more sustainable than trying to change everything at once. And for those potentially apprehensive about bigger changes, that I've described so far, simply switching to whole grain versions of the carbohydrates that you're currently consuming, say rice, pasta, crackers and breads, can be a simple way to increase the fiber content of your diet with minimal effort. And it's a great first step. Now, it's not only food and drink that affects our microbes. Stress can also play havoc with them through the imbalances that it generates, as well as contributing to other gastrointestinal problems. So stress-relieving lifestyle interventions have also been shown to help increase the vagus nerve activity, with acupuncture, hypnosis, yoga, meditation, and exercise all showing the potential to help. However, I tend to find that not everyone is able to or open to trying these interventions. But there is a common theme with most of these activities that contribute to their effect, and that's the breath. So one option that is open to most people is breathing exercises. And particular ways of breathing can activate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system, bringing us out of a stressed state and into the more relaxed one that our body processes are much happier with. It's been shown that slowing and deepening your breathing, extending the exhale slightly longer than the inhale, can activate the vagus nerve. And these are simple techniques that can be adapted to suit the individual. So, for example, I tend to find that a lot of the guided online breathing exercises that focus on extending the exhale just extend the exhale a little bit long for most people's current breathing capacity. So forcing yourself to exhale for longer than is comfortable can be a little bit stressful in its own right. And I advise people to start by noticing their own breath and count how long they typically inhale or exhale for. Then try to add one count onto the exhale for a couple of rounds of controlled breathing. When this feels comfortable, you can slowly build up over time until your exhale is a few counts longer than your inhale. Oh, have I lost you there, Kath? Oh, apologies, you're just popping out. So yeah, when this feels comfortable, you can build up over time so that your exhale is just a few counts longer than your inhale. And including a little time each day to simply focus on your breathing can be incredibly beneficial, not only for the mind-stilling effects, but as it helps to bring us into the rest and digest state. I find it can be a useful tool for some who struggle with gastrointestinal issues. In these situations, I recommend trying some deep breathing before meals so that the body is calm and ready to receive food and can digest it properly. And this is because the vagus nerve helps with the secretion of our digestive juices, our gut motility, and our stomach acidity, which is very important when it comes to breaking down foods. Now, my research is currently focusing on the effects of nutrition on the vagus nerve, irrespective of lifestyle interventions. And given its close relationship with the gut, there are a lot of promising avenues that I'm currently exploring, ranging from the more direct effects of particular nutrients, such as the fatty acids, caffeine, and alcohol, to the slightly more indirect route of influencing the diversity and activity of our gut microbes with the foods that we eat, as we've discussed today. So I'm still working on it. It's going to be a couple of months until I have the full results. But what it's doing is shedding light on areas where we need to explore further in future research and shaping a path to further understanding. Once my research is complete, I hope to present the results for those that are interested in an online talk, which will be posted on my website. So I hope I've not bombarded you with too much information today. I have created a document to support the talk with some links to resources with tips to help make including more fruits, vegetables and fibre in your diet simple, cheap and as convenient as possible. So looking at batch cooking and things. And I've also included the scientific references for the details that we've gone through for anyone who's interested around the subject. Also, if you'd like any book references for anything to do with nutrition, please just contact me. I'm a complete geek to recommend some to you. If anyone is interested, I do online cook-alongs with healthy cooking sessions. I currently run one a month in the evening, and I'm looking to start Sunday batch cooking sessions to help get everything ready for the week ahead and make it streamlined for busy working days. These events are free and the details are available on my website, along with all of the recipes from previous events and my articles in the Blackmore Vale, which is out today as well. If anyone is interested in booking a nutritional therapy consultation with me, I do offer free 30-minute introductory calls to discuss your needs. And I would like to offer 15% off of my services to anyone listening to this talk. Just let me know that you listened when you make contact.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. Sorry, I'm just hesitating because there's still that bit of a delay. And apologies, I got out for a minute there. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I think we're having a general, it sounds like everyone's connections are a bit dodged today, aren't they? No, thank you so much. It is just absolutely fascinating. And, you know, it's quite interesting as well. You're saying about sort of half the plate being vegetables, because I think that's a bit of a change, isn't it, from the regular, what do they call it, the good plate or something? I can't remember what it's called now, but you have much more sort of carbohydrate, didn't you? But it's a case, I guess, of moving those carbs over to carbs that are going to give you benefits other than energy. So they're giving you protein and fiber and your gut microbes as well.
Exactly, multi-purpose foods. I love them. So looking at whole grains, you know, that ticks most of those boxes. You've got more nutrients, you've got more fiber, you've got more protein in the husk of the grain that where we refine them just gets thrown away, which is complete waste. But I do.
Get our bodies working.
Half a plate. Yes, half a plate of vegetables is a lot to ask for a lot of people, and it is. I mean, it's end goal kind of territory, but it's nice to kind of have that information, you know, that this is where we would like to be, you know, but take it slowly. You know, it's not a case of, you know, doing everything all in one go and putting yourself under more stress. It's the last thing that you want your nutrition to be doing.
Yes, and I think you're right there, because it's very easy to sort of punish ourselves and say, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, when actually we've got to sort of start, and I'm terrible at this, I'm the should sort of person, but actually looking at where you are and all the things, all the challenges that you've got, and then gently guiding yourself towards something more positive. I know Hannah's just saying there about naughty sweets and giving her a headache. And I have to admit that I find that carbs, breads and things tend to give me a trigger towards eating everything else as well. So if I keep away from them, I crave them. But if I eat them, I still crave them. So I don't actually win, I've just eaten them. So but looking at some of the, going back to the postbiotics and things, one of the things I was quite interested in is, I mean, I have to admit, I really don't like fermented food. I struggle with that, but I can do the yogurt. And so I'm quite interested in looking at making it yourself as well. I think that's a really good idea. I think my problem, and I don't know if other people find this, that when you're really stressed, you do crave the sugar, don't you? Have you got, I don't know if you've got any answer for this, but is there any tips as to something that might just do instead? Not Haribo.
It's stress, and obviously reaching for those kind of foods sets us off on a bit of a blood sugar roller coaster. And when your levels are going up and down, it just makes the cravings worse. And so one way is to just try and take yourself off of the blood sugar roller coaster. So actually, one of the best things to do if you've had a couple of naughty sweets and things, and you're feeling a little bit worse for wear afterwards, and you can feel another craving coming on, have some protein. Protein will help to slow the release of the sugars from these foods into your system. So if you go, oh, I've just had a load of Haribo, I really enjoyed them, but I know I'm going to feel rubbish afterwards, have a couple of nuts with it as well, and you'll just help stop that from happening quite to the same extent. It's not obviously going to kind of limit it in the sense of if you'd had, I mean, I've got a nice recipe for chickpea blondies that hits that sweet spot, but it's quite well balanced with the fiber and the protein and everything like that. I'm happy to share that link as well, by the way. But making sure that you've got that protein source with your snacks can help in that respect, because we always tend to have a protein source with our main meals. But when it comes to snacks, they're usually quite carb or sugar heavy. And we're kind of forgetting that other part of the jigsaw puzzle. So I suppose that's my takeaway tip to try and help with cravings anyway.
That's really helpful, actually, because at least if you have to have it, you can sort of temper it a little bit. And like you were saying earlier, if you've got sort of a ready meal, at least if you can chuck some salad on the side, it isn't just a nod in the right direction. It does really help. So that's really helpful. Now, Sarah, as you can see, has just popped on a really interesting one. So yes, yeah, if you're eating a lot of vegetables, she's needs to actually gain weight. So should she balance what she's eating with the veg?
Yeah, I mean, this is where it comes down to, everyone is different. So depending on your goal and depending on your individual, current health status, would say whether you have slightly more carbohydrates on your plate as well as your vegetables, or, slightly fewer. And, it's down to how you metabolize them as well. But when it comes to the vegetables, you can really go for the sweeter ones. You can go for lots of legumes as well. They are obviously still quite high in carbohydrates, but it's good fibers and they've got some protein in there as well. So they're really nutritionally dense. And that's what you want. I mean, both if you're trying to lose weight and also if you're trying to gain weight. If your foods are giving you everything you need, in a smaller package, you can either squeeze more foods onto your plate if you're needing to gain weight, or the opposite. And obviously it's not quite as simple as that. It's down to the individual. But you can really go for the sweeter options, which have that slightly higher carbohydrate content, butternut squash, sweet potatoes, carrots, parsnips, and everything like that, in that situation anyway.
Brilliant. Would it be good for her to use, say, a healthy fat with those as well? Should she be avoiding fats, or should she maybe be using like a healthy fat with those vegetables to gain weight?
I mean, healthy fats, everyone should be including them in their diet. It's obviously just the proportions depending on your individual, requirements. So by all means, some grass-fed butter, to pop some of that on the vegetables. I frequently recommend kind of herb butters for making your vegetables that bit more interesting and giving you a bit of flavour in that respect. But I mean, either that or a little bit of good quality olive oils drizzled over vegetables. Even though we typically think of it for salad dressings, over hot vegetables it can really kind of give a vibrant flavour, especially with a little bit of lemon zest and things like that.
Oh yeah, you're making me hungry now. That sounds fabulous. Oh, amazing. Actually, I often, because you're just saying that, and I have to say this is a question that I've often had, is that if you've got things like the sweet potatoes and they're telling us to eat those instead of real potatoes, and I suppose they're less carb dense, but are they giving us more instant sugar?
They still are quite high on what's called the glycemic index. And so this is kind of the blood sugar response to foods. Now, I would still say that depending on your circumstances, you would want to have a smaller portion of those kind of foods. You wouldn't want to be having it as the main part of your vegetable content. They can vary as to how much they're going to raise your blood sugar depending on how they're cooked as well. So anywhere where you can include the skin will up the fiber content, which will slow the release of the sugars into your bloodstream. Also, you can't just take one food in isolation. It depends what you're having it with. So if you're having it with a good protein source and some healthy fats and lots of vegetables, then you're getting a balanced meal that is going to be treated better by your body than, say, if you were just to have the sweet potato. So it's not to say that there's something that should be avoided in individual circumstances, depending on what you're working towards. They should either be a small part of your plate or enjoy them, more freely. But always try to go for the higher fiber way of doing them. So keeping the skins on and maybe baking them. Brilliant.
Oh, just losing you a little bit there. So I think we're probably, on our way to the end. I'm just having a look through the chat. Is there any other questions that people might like to draw in? I know we've got quite a few people watching, so it'd be quite nice to see if there's any other direct questions that anyone would like to ask. While people are typing in, there is another thing that popped into my head. I told you I'd be a nightmare. I'm trying really hard not to be. I suppose something that interests me as well, I mean, I know you've kind of answered it by saying, you shouldn't be, but supplements are not as good as eating properly. But I'm just thinking about the supplements that don't necessarily reach the gut alive. So I suppose I've kind of answered my own question. Do you think, what should we do? I suppose I've kind of talked around it and answered my own question, but what do you think about these supplements? Is that what we should be doing? And do they work?
With specifically probiotics, or are we looking at kind of supplements?
Probiotics, etc.
I mean, supplements in general, there is always a place for them. If someone's got, an overt deficiency of something, then it's one of the quickest ways to obviously help get their levels back up so that they're feeling better, alongside obviously changing diet and trying to make sure that they're having the most nutritionally dense foods that they can. Mm-hmm. When it comes to probiotics, you can look for obviously ones that are enteric coated to try and help make sure that they reach the gut. There are particular strains that already have an innate kind of ability to be able to do that anyway. But if you're having a combined capsule, then that's one thing to look for. Also, the colony forming units. So that'll be referred to on the packet as CFU. And that just means the number of live microbes that are in there. And the higher that number is, the more chance there is of obviously some of them reaching the gut alive. So if you do want to go down that avenue, then that would be, the best thing to look for would be obviously enteric coated the colony forming units. But when it comes to looking at just particular strains of probiotics, I would obviously advise seeing someone like myself or another health professional, or doing some research to make sure that you're buying the right strain for you. Just looking to see, if there is research backing that strain for what you are looking for it to do, so that you're not wasting your money. There are studies that are supporting particular strains for particular things. We're not there with everything. There is still a lot of research to be done when it comes to actually being able to prescribe a wide array of probiotics for different conditions or different symptoms. But there are a few things that, things like traveler's diarrhea, constipation, there are, particular strains that have been associated with these conditions. And there's certainly something that can be used. But just a little bit of research will help make sure that you're not wasting your money unnecessarily. And also, the fermented foods have also been shown to have similar effects. So if that's the cheaper option for you, not only are you getting some live bacteria, but especially in the case of sauerkraut and kimchi, you're getting fibers that feed those bacteria as well, which is great. You're getting a double whammy, their food and the microbes themselves.
Oh, amazing. And that was, you've just got it. I was just going to fill it up.
What are the best cheeses?
You're talking about unfermented cheese, no, unpasteurized cheeses, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can, typically it's easier to find unpasteurized ones from, a cheesemonger or, a local kind of supplier, but you can still go into the supermarkets. And if you just have a look on the back of the packet, it will say whether the milk is pasteurized or unpasteurized. Now, if it's unpasteurized, it means that it hasn't been heat treated, so that the bacteria that have helped the cheese become cheese from milk are actually still in there. And that can be great. They do have a shorter lifespan, as it were, and so the best before will typically be that bit closer than pasteurized cheeses, but usually you can cheese does still last quite a while. A best before is a best before, not a use by. But just to, in the case of making sure that things don't go to waste and things don't spoil unnecessarily, it is worth bearing that in mind.
Mm-hmm. So would that be things like Feta, perhaps? I'm thinking about that because it goes off quickly.
Feta, I think a lot of the time it is still used with pasteurized milk.
Oh, right.
There are types of manchego and things like that are particularly known for being live. You get a lot of soft cheeses that are still that are unpasteurized as well. So it is a case of checking the packet though, because the thing is, I could reel off names of cheeses, and sometimes they still end up being pasteurized before they make it to us.
Yeah.
So the quick fix is just have a quick look at the back of the packet, and that will help make sure that you're not buying something that you think has live bacteria when it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Are pickled foods the same as fermented? Okay, not quite, I'm afraid. So vinegar is already a fermented product. But when it comes to making things like kimchi and sauerkraut, what you're doing is using the bacteria that are naturally occurring and the juices from the cabbage itself. So just to quickly kind of go over how you do it, you end up rubbing salt and herbs and spices into the sliced cabbage itself, and you create a kind of brine, and you leave it to sit in that brine, and it ferments of its own accord. So you're not using the kind of acids that are already in the vinegars to soften and preserve. You are preserving in the first stage. Does that make sense? Sorry, I don't think I've described that.
I know what you mean. Yeah, so you're making the vegetable ferment as opposed to putting something fermented on it, and you need that to get the actual goodness out. Aha, brilliant. I have to say, I really don't like fermented food. I'm really struggling, but I can do the yogurts. So yeah. I think that's the route forward for me. Definitely.
I mean, I hate anything pickled, but I can actually do fermented foods, which I find slightly unusual. But kefir, I mean, is great. So if you're okay with live yogurt, maybe try some shop bought kefir, obviously making sure that it's unpasteurized, just to see. It is a slightly tangier flavor than live yogurt, but there's a lot more research into the benefits of it, and it has a more broad spectrum of bacteria within it than regular live yogurt usually. And as I said, you can make it at home yourself, and every 2 days you've got a fresh jar of kefir on the side. All you have to do is strain off the grains and add some more milk, and it starts making some more for you.
Yeah, no, that's helpful actually. This is probably a very good way of doing it, isn't it? Do you know, I did just have something I was going to say to that, and it's gone completely out of my head, which is absolutely useless, isn't it? So I think on that note, I think that's all of the questions. So thank you so much, Rebecca. That has been absolutely fascinating. Yeah, we're just popping on here, which kind of links into what you were saying about the breathing exercises and things. And you were saying that although medication has a good place and we mustn't move away from that, the article that we put the link on about is it's about a chap who went to his doctors with, I think it was sort of depression or mental health, and was prescribed a walk, and it's that positive move away now, isn't it, from instead of just taking more and more chemicals into our bodies that our bodies have to fight over, to actually looking at more physical ways of supporting ourselves, which is just so much healthier than continuing with the bad ways and just chucking tablets on top to try and medicate the bad ways. So it's a really interesting read, and yeah, absolutely. So thank you for popping that one up. So again, Rebecca, thank you so much. So I think what we'll do is we'll end the broadcast here, but don't forget everyone to have a look at those links. I think we're going to pop them, if we don't pop them onto the bottom of the Talking Cafe, because you've done a really interesting page for us, haven't you, of all of the links and the references, etc. But did you say you were going to pop those onto your website as well?
They are on the website. I've also made it so that that document is a link, and that I think that popped up at the beginning. So yeah, do have a look on there. A few more tips for batch cooking, a couple of my kind of favorite people to go to for recipes, and as I said, all the scientific links as well.
Brilliant. Thank you again so much. So that's the last Friday Talking Cafe finished. But Tuesday, what did we say? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays at 1 o'clock. So thank you again, Rebecca, and goodbye, everybody.